I will try to answer questions, provide links, do all those good things that they're talking about. So you have those resources. We will also send out a recorded version of this. Please share this with team members, peers, anybody you think would find this conversation interesting. And of course, there will be some poll questions in there today. So we'll find out what those will be a little bit later on during our process. But those will be in there, and links to all the resources and things that they talk about today. So without further ado, Dr. Bruce Baird and Dr. Peter Boulden, welcome, gentlemen.
Hey,
thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Peter, thanks so much for coming on. I know, we've gotten a chance. I was just at your Bulletproof seminar down in Houston. And I think it was probably the last live seminar done
in dentistry, right?
I mean,
it feels like 2 years ago, by the way.
How long has it been? Like 4?
It's been 6 weeks.
6 weeks, yeah. That's the first part. I mean, it's crazy. It's really nuts. And for those of you who don't know Dr. Boulden, he is an entrepreneur, and he's part of the Bulletproof team. And they do seminars and I know a lot of different types of consulting work, and we've been friends now for a couple of years, and I'm just always interested in your thought process. You also, being an entrepreneur, you have several practices. Tell me about
I've got 7 we'll be 7 locations this summer. The COVID stuff has put a little bit of a hiatus in the expansion. I actually have a couple in construction right now, but yeah. Amongst those things, yes, I'm actually I own several practices too. So all of this is very relevant for me.
Yeah, it is. So, kind of right off the bat, I mean, when did you really start thinking that this was going to be a big problem? I mean,
well, I saw it coming. You could kind of see the wave coming. We actually shut down prior to it being mandated to do so, because you could just see the writing on the wall. You could look at Italy. You could look at how it was just the pandemic was progressing. You could just see like, oh no, this is going to be bad. So, we stepped in front of it, and I shut down before everyone else, because I just said, look, I want to help be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And, and dentistry was getting a little bit of dentistry was in the crosshairs a little bit, I feel like, because of the aerosols that we create. And so anyway, I saw it coming, and you could just kind of see, like, it was leaving clues all the way as it crossed the ocean, if you will, Bruce.
It was. What's interesting to me, though, is there's still kind of the defiant. I mean, there's 2 camps. There's the defiant mentality that is like, oh, we're going to get in and we're going to, work on patients and obviously see emergencies. I just had a call this morning from a patient who needs some help. But so we're going to see that. And then there's others who just, close down completely, because, my concern was I'm seeing healthcare workers in the ER that look like they're in total hazmat suits, and, and they're not producing an aerosol. So mine was kind of like, golly, it's kind of scary. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we shut. Yeah, so when I say we shut down, we still open for emergencies for patients of record, of course. Sure. There's no. But in terms of everything's been kind of shut down, if you will. Yeah. Like I'd say probably 99% of the practices. I mean, we're just at a standstill, waiting on go.
I know.
And that's frustrating, especially for people who crave progress and want to just, you feel like it's just sitting at home, and no one wants to be doing this. So you have to force yourself, to be taking this time to re-engineer or recreate systems or whatever. There's lots of stuff that can always be done, because, I'll tell a funny story, Bruce. My assistant, my executive assistant, Kimberly, and I told this story a number of times, but maybe 2 months ago, my hair was on fire, like always, kind of doing things. I was like, I just wish everyone would go on pause so I could catch up and really get a break. And it's funny now, it's like, be careful what you wish for, because now you have the pause, but then you bellyache about having the pause. So it's like,
I know.
But you can use this, sometimes you can reframe the narrative, is what I'm trying to say. This
Sure.
can sometimes be a blessing and a silver lining as much as you can hope for right now.
Yeah, you bet. I mean, I've been telling a story the last few weeks about, what happens when we finally get back to work. I mean, we're going to have a different way of thinking. Obviously, as a business guy, I'll be thinking productivity and thinking taking care of people. But same day dentistry is going to be big, pent up demand, that type stuff. but my concern still is the aerosol sprays and stuff. What have you heard, or what are you thinking in getting prepared for that type of situation?
Well, obviously, I think that hygiene is going to be the last thing that gets kind of the green flag, so to speak. I think that we'll be doing prophy polishes for a while. I think that Cavitrons will be sidelined for a little while, and this is just me speculating.
Sure.
I think in terms of, I think we'll be wearing a different level of PPE equipment in dentistry. I don't think it'll be kind of the hazmat suits like you said, but I think, it used to be that those face masks with a visor, you'd look at people who wore those in dentistry, you're like, come on, what are you doing, right? But now that's going to be like the thing. Hygienists are for sure going to have face masks and N95 masks, face visors, I should say. And it's not going to look quote unquote dorky anymore. It's going to be like, that's going to be just the new world we live in.
Yeah.
And so I think there'll be a different level of that. I also think that offices that are high tech and are always, clean and don't have the shag carpet kind of thing are going to be an advantage in this day and age, because people are going to become, it used to be sterilization was like, oh, cool, it's a very new and clean office. Like that was just a perk for making you feel good. But now it's a real legit thing that like my dentist has shag carpet. Like I'm probably not going to go there. Who knows how much coronavirus is in that carpet, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be a different perception. I think the public is definitely wide awake now with this, and I think they're going to be seeking out safe, quote unquote, safer environments.
So I'm going to have to get rid of my ceiling fan in the ops.
Maybe not. Well, the ceiling fan, right? You could that actually, they say cross ventilation is actually a really good thing. So maybe you can just say this is the high tech cross ventilator we have here.
You're a redneck dentist if you have a ceiling fan in your
Hey, it's no longer a ceiling fan; it's a cross ventilator, Bruce. It's a cross ventilator.
Okay. We're totally on the same page. Hey, Stephen, we're going to run a poll right now, and it's kind of interesting. If Stephen, just run the one on the PPE. I'm just curious. It's just a poll question that we're sending out. How many of you think you have enough PPE to handle the first month in practice? But we've got, 130 people on here right now. And I'd just be interested to see that poll question. Do I have to pop it up, or do you pop it up?
So I think you would have to pop it up on your side, but I can go into the chat and do a little improvised one and write the question for everybody to kind of check out there real quick.
All right, yeah, do that, and then we'll come back and we'll post it.
Sounds perfect.
So Peter, when you're what things are you doing in your businesses and your practices in preparation for when they do wave the green flag? That's my term too. It's like start, let's go. What things are you doing in the background?
So in what aspect of, and from an operations standpoint, from a marketing perspective, like which?
Really, first of all, with your team, how are you? What situation are you in? Did you do the furlough?
I laid everybody off.
Yeah.
I laid everybody off. There was too much uncertainty surrounding that April 1st deadline regarding the HR 6201 or 6021. I can't remember now. But there was too much, there's too much uncertainty, and I just felt it was safe for the business and safer for the team to be able to go on full unemployment benefits, as hard as that was. I mean, that was a time period, Bruce. I don't think I slept for 72 hours struggling with that. I've never missed a payroll in my whole career, 20 years kind of, and, you can probably relate to that. You have a badge of honor around that. So it was a hard decision, but it was truly, I felt like it was a selfless one, because the business, we have to have a business to come back to when this is all over. And I had to make hard decisions to make sure that happened. Yeah. But the team handled it well. And I think teams, and I think as we lead teams, I think they handle honesty and transparency a lot better than just trying to, sugarcoat things. And so we had a Zoom call, and unfortunately I had to have a Zoom call with my entire team. And it was a tough day, but it was good to get it done.
Yeah, no question. One of the other things that I've been kind of looking at is, are you communicating with the team on a regular basis now with doing a Zoom meeting maybe once a week or once?
Yeah, so we have little happy hours we do, but and I do, because I have multiple locations, right? A lot of my meetings, even pre-COVID, were done via video, and we're more just announcements of what's going on in our ecosystem. So same kind of thing I'm doing still, as well as the Zoom meetings, but there's just not as many announcements anymore. It's really just checking in on people personally. How's your family? How's everyone doing? What are you doing to stay sane? These kind of things.
Yeah. Are you doing anything out through social media to your patients?
Yeah. So I am just only thing we're doing is just, I'm not advertising or anything like that. We're really just putting up a message that we're here if you need us. And that's pretty much it. Right. It's not doing any other narrative other than like, if you're in trouble, just know that we're still here. And, from dental trouble, we're still here. And that's really all we're doing.
Yeah. I saw Scott Westermeyer, a buddy of mine up in Buffalo. He was doing Facebook Lives telling people, hey, we're here. And I just want to let everybody know that, if you have an emergency or something, please come in and let us know. I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, it is cool. And especially too, because people look at, I'm not saying it's opportunistic. He probably was doing that genuine, but it was a very smart move because there are a lot of dentist practices who have just shut down and there is no way to get in touch with them. And there are people that are still in need. So, ironically, there will be an opportunity for new patients, for someone who's saying like, my dentist is closed. And this gentleman is on the screen saying like, we're here if you need us kind of thing. Like, I think I might pivot to that. Sure. So who knows, it's just crazy. It's crazy.
Now, did you go through the government assistance doing the EIDL, the EIDL loan and the PPP? Were you able to do that for each location or?
No, because they're all under one. So I got two, So let me unpack that in two ways. So I did the EIDL immediately, and I actually just got funded for several of my organizations this week for that, and that was just the $10,000 thing. The PPP, again, being so much confusion surrounding that, and under so many calls with that, I decided that I was going to wait because the second you get funds deployed to you, you have an 8-week timer, and if we have an unknown when can we get back and turn the lights on in dentistry, I didn't want to burn my 8 weeks sitting idle at home, waiting for us to be able to actually practice dentistry. And now come to find out that $350 billion is, I'm looking at my watch because it's probably very timely.
Today.
It's gone. It's gone.
I know.
Gone. So, so I know they're probably going to have to talk about doing another round of funding and another tranche of that, but I haven't yet applied even, Bruce, because it would just be a moot point because I still think we've got a little bit more distance to go.
You bet. What I've been telling docs is, it's like gambling 101. You're going to either, if you have everybody come back, then what's the big fear is, what if we can't go back? And it's 8 weeks are up. Okay, the government paid. My preference would be have my employees on unemployment and getting the enhanced unemployment benefit, which many of our chair side and front office people are making more money, at least in the state of Texas, than they were in the practice. Is that the way it is in Atlanta too? Is it?
Some, yeah, which presents a whole different sort of other questions and problems probably. I mean, it's great, but like, that's going to be hard to pull people off the sidelines. They're like, wait a second, I'm getting paid more to sit home.
Yeah, I know. One of the weird things for me is looking at this political, kickback. It's going back and forth, and they're arguing over it. And the first reasonable thing I've heard, and I am not a huge, I'm a huge Dallas Mavericks fan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a huge fan of the owner, Mark Cuban.
You don't like Cuban?
Well, I like him, but he tends to lean a little more to left than I do. So, but today
he's just a libertarian,
Yeah. And today he was on Fox News this morning, and I've been listening to him now for the last week, but man, he's making a lot of sense. But why? Because he's working with small businesses. He really understands small business. And he's saying, we don't solve this issue, and we're all small businesses. I mean, and this PPP, great plan. They threw all this money to Wall Street, and then they gave us a little something that was not well thought out. And Mnuchin, he's the Wall Street guy, and so I think that we're going to have some help, or there's going to be mass numbers of. We're not talking just shutting down. We're talking about going bye-bye.
You need to look at, if you really want to get frustrated, look at the breakdown of that $2 trillion that they passed right?
Yeah.
When only 350 is going to small businesses, 350 billion only, right? But look at the breakdown and you'll see the fat in that where the negotiations between the two sides of the aisle. Yeah, there's so much fluff and in there that like, and they just didn't have time to negotiate, but there's some crazy allocations of funding that you'd be frustrated where people are hurting right now, right? And they're fluffing it with like just crazy stuff.
Yeah, they are. And I think we're going to have to get, I mean, my prediction has been for the last month of doing these webinars, my prediction has been June 15th looks like a date that's with the curve in the US. I'm hopeful that we could start back to work.
Yeah.
And, but then the question becomes, do we have the PPE that we need? What do we have any results off that, Stephen? Do we have?
Yeah, a big wall of N's going straight down the board. There were a few S's, but yeah, no, folks aren't prepared and they don't know what the ADA is going to be recommending. We even had a doctor suggest, hey, I don't want to even go back until there's a vaccine or a solution to this problem.
And that's going to be the personal, choice, but it's not just a personal choice as an owner, business owner. I mean, I would think that there's got to be some liability to your employees and their families. I mean, I already saw the guy on the cruise ships blaming Carnival Cruise for getting the coronavirus, and they've got a big lawsuit. There's some people from Texas. Some of my friends were on that cruise that were in. I had 4 couples that were buddies of mine that were stuck on that ship, and now they've had 7 people die, and lawsuits are open. I just don't know what the answer is. I mean, that's a fear. Do you know it? Does our practice management? I mean, does our insurance cover those kind of things as far as?
You mean business interruption?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well, business interruption doesn't, but I'm talking about our malpractice. Would malpractice cover any of that? Probably not.
No, because they would probably put that under negligence, right? Like, so, because that's not an act of your clinical skill. That's a good question, Bruce. But that was one of the reasons when you mentioned kind of like, I said I stepped in front of it. Is that was the reason I was looking at it from a liability aspect. Like, I don't want to be the one that says like, well, I got it there, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Whether it be a patient or an employee.
Exactly.
Either way,
exactly.
Huge problem. And one of the things that I always tell folks, I mean, sitting and waiting for the ADA to come out with a recommendation, in my opinion, you just might as well. I'm using educate yourself on the virus and, its virility and all those things. And then you can make that decision. Personally, I probably will have some type of, hazmat gear when I go in, because I'm the old guy. I'm the old guy's had a little history of some heart issues. Well, I darn sure don't want to catch it because I'm in that higher risk category. I think another question to talk about that could solve some of this would be if we had testing. Have you looked into that? Or?
I have. I've actually, my wife actually had the test done physically to see if she had it, because she had all the symptoms when I came back from Houston. I did too, actually. Spiked a fever, had a dry cough for a while. So we kind of went through it, and I'm not taking the test to figure it out because but I am going to take the antibody test.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And see, because I bet you, I bet you it's once these tests become more prevalent, I bet you this pandemonium, everyone thinking like, oh my gosh, I don't want to contract this. They probably already have probably been exposed to it and they'll know it. They had some low grade symptoms.
Yeah, they do.
But testing's the key. The antibody testing's the key. Actually, you can order some from I've been on this waiting list it's called toxtest.com, and you can order a pack of like 25 for $600, but they come in stock and as dentists, we can order these, and it's just a finger prick, a drop of blood, but they're out of stock. And every time it's like, okay, we have a new stock, I go and try and buy them, and they're all sold out again.
Yeah. And the one person that said, I don't think I'm going to go back until there's a vaccine, that, who knows? I mean,
well, that's a 12. That means you're probably not going to work back until post Christmas, after Christmas.
and most people are going to have a tough time. I have heard that there's potential that there could be a vaccine for healthcare providers, but I don't know if dentists are going to fall into that category.
I just hope it's not from Bill Gates.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah,
It'll have a little microchip in there.
Yeah. So they'll be following us around. So
I won't go down a conspiracy theory attack.
Oh, I've already been down that this last week. I've listened to a couple of healthcare guys who were, talking about the vaccine and that this is kind of a, hyped up and everything else. But from our perspective, being dental practitioners, most practitioners, and this is really where Productive Dentist Academy, I know the Bulletproof, you're trying to get these offices more productive and understand revenue and understand how to put money aside for these kind of things. And to be successful in business, there's a lot to it, but you got to have retained earnings. You've got to have money set on the sidelines, but still most practices can't make it 2 months without, you'd end up closing your doors because you couldn't handle even payroll.
Yeah, like at what point is the solution worse than, at what point, what I'm trying to say, like, at what point do you have to say, like, people just can't sit on the sidelines, right? Because there's going to be some real pain. If you say June 16th, there's already people rioting. Look at Michigan.
Yep.
Right. People want to get back to work. Right. And I think that there's going to be a mandate that's going to come out and say, look, if you feel like you're healthy enough and you want to get back out there, like, go for it. If you're fragile and sheltered, like, stay in place. But there's not going to be this widespread mandate of like, stay at home.
Right.
It just can't. Right.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think probably, the president's really pushing to get us back to work. And I understand that.
He's going to put it back in the hands of the governors is what he's going to do.
That's exactly right. Because every state, Texas, we have had our third death in Hood County, which is my little county I live in. And we've got 17 cases, but it keeps going up in Little Hood County. So everybody's in the same boat looking around, what do we do? But I guess my biggest concern in getting back to work is that we don't know. Now, if I knew that I had the antibodies and that I'd already had it and I was safe, I would go in and work. And if I had a couple of assistants who I knew had that antibody, had the antibodies, I'd go to work and I would be available, and we would have to test people anyway, still test them. But I'm just not sure that stuff's going to be available for us when we start back.
Look, are you familiar with the herd immunity aspect? And I think that's going to be the thing that's going to make this leave as fast as it came, right? And we won't know until we get more testing, but I think herd immunity is going to fix this and flatten the curve just organically.
Yeah. Well, one of the things about the herd immunity is, most of the time people aren't on lockdown. So you go through this process where everybody's getting everybody else and talking to everybody else. I've only left my house twice in 28 days. If I get an immunity, I don't even know where it's coming from.
Right. I'm telling you
around here, but I don't know, what the hell's going on with that. But anyway, so that's one of my concerns. But one of the things, that I've been talking to docs about is it's the first time in history we've ever had 300, 400, 500 patients that are sitting on the sidelines needing an appointment. We already took them off our schedule. And so what I've been telling our docs is, okay, here's your opportunity to, if you've been doing 500 an hour or 4,000 a day or, whatever it is, this is your opportunity to load your schedule when you go back at much higher productivity, taking the people who need dentistry, using them in the first part, because you're going to have to recoup this last 2 months. And so I believe it's very possible to go through this process and still reach our goals for this year. If this only lasts for 2 months, or whatever, if we're shut down for that long. And so that's one of the things that I've been talking to our docs about. Get your list together. Don't just tell your team, okay, fill my schedule. That's the worst thing you can do in this right now, because you want to be productive. And the other thing that I've been telling them is, have some time for this pent-up demand of these emergency type patients and be ready to do same-day dentistry. Just commitment to I'm going to do this today, no matter what it is, and I'm going to get back that productivity that I lost What kind of things are you, planning for with your docs?
Say all of that, Bruce. Honestly, like I believe that you strike when it's hot, and if there's pent up demand, like we're gonna go to, most of my offices are open 4 days a week. They will likely go to 5 all if
Right.
need be, and then extended hours. And the cool thing is about our team, having these Zoom meetings, like everyone's okay with working a lot more right now, right? Even my team, right?
Yeah.
Like people recognize, I think there's a silver lining, like how much sometimes people shake their head and say, oh no, another Monday. But I don't think we'll be hearing that this year anymore once we go back to work. Like people are going to be blessed to be, working and doing a purpose and stuff like that. So the team is going to be open to doing extended hours and more days and stuff like that. And so I agree with you. I think we can make up for some lost time.
Yeah.
Some.
Yeah. Depends on how long it goes.
Yeah, exactly.
How long it goes. And there's also going to be the conversation about people holding on to their money and stuff. But let's go through, Stephen, what questions, and tell us about the poll question that you just sent out.
Oh yeah, I mean, you guys have really stirred up the chat today. I'm hearing things in there that we have not discussed on the last 12 webinars we've done, Dr. Baird. So yeah, to the PPEs, they just don't have them. They really want recommendations from the ADA. I also asked about that antibody testing, and they just said, no, not available. Love to get some. Dr. Boulden, they wanted to know, what was the name of that company that you mentioned more time?
Tox. You could just Google, like trying to find the exact verbiage, that name. Tox test. I have it in my browser. Tox test. TOXTEST, all one word, antibody test. And if you Google that, you can see, you can go on there and you can, and it's an antibody test. There's a couple other ones. If you look at, there's an article that Futurism magazine, futurism.com put out, and there's 3 companies that are offering these antibody tests, but they haven't been approved and regulated by the FDA, which of course is going to be a lag indicator on this, but but they might be legit. I don't know. So I can't vouch for these companies. I've never used them, but there are 3 that are in the space right now that are selling them as fast as they can produce them.
Yeah. Wow. What are the questions?
Would y'all like to do some questions? We got a bunch of them.
Let's roll.
All right. Cool. This one was really interesting to me. So why is there no dentist present on the government COVID task force? As members of the ADA, we need to let them know we are here waiting to go back to work. We are not non-essential. Dental needs are essential.
Great question. Why aren't there?
Yeah. I mean, that's more of a statement that why aren't there? But, I don't know. I think because this kind of hit, really weird way, shutting us down, which has never happened before. I think the ADA, possibly, had their drawers down a little bit, as all of us did. None of us, I mean, I would have been more than happy to start buying N95 masks. I've got some, here, but I ordered them. I was on a cruise between Australia and New Zealand, and somebody in Auckland had gotten the virus, and I was like, oh crap, I'm ordering these masks. And so I ordered some masks back then. I've kind of kept them. I've given them to a couple of my kids. I think I have 20 of them. That's going to last 45 minutes, or I'll figure out how to sterilize them or whatever. But bottom line is I don't have very many of them, but it's definitely, we need somebody up there on the task force, but we also need a small business person up there saying, hey, this is what we need. And, Mnuchin is all about, I think, Wall Street probably. So that's my thoughts. What other questions we got, Stephen?
Yeah, you bet. I got one from Dr. Nils Bankston here. It is, what should we do to prepare for opening our dental office regarding patient screening, in-office testing, office prep, staff protection, use of the handpiece?
Yeah, Peter, I'll let you start out on this one.
So it's funny in dentistry, like we have always dealt with, we've always practiced universal precautions, right? We've always assumed that everyone had tuberculosis. We've always assumed that everyone had hepatitis. So I don't think much has changed other than considering the aerosols, right. And so it's not that this is like, look, things will change, but I don't think that should scare us into saying like, oh my gosh, we can't practice now because of this. So I think that, like I mentioned earlier, I think there'll be more visors and shields. I think there'll be a little bit more attention to how we wear our masks. If once they come back into circulation. I think we'll be getting into slower dentistry. If you follow Miguel Stanley, you kind of know his methodology is like a little bit longer appointment time so that you can sufficiently, allow the sterilization of rooms or the disinfecting of rooms between appointments. I think that there'll be more attention paid to stuff like that. We're just gonna have to kind of roll into it a little slower because it's uncharted waters. Everyone's going to be uncertain as to what it is.
Yeah. One of the things that I have a question about is, if we were testing people, if they had the virus and we had quick testing, I think Abbott Labs has something that's 15 minutes. We would have to have somebody outside, just like you see at the hospitals, testing people, have you go back to your car. Yes, you're clear to come in, but it seems like they might want to have an antibody test and the virus test so that you can go, okay, yes, you've had it or whatever. I don't know. Do you see that happening out in the parking lots of dental offices?
I don't see that. I see it going as far as like taking people's temperature.
Yep.
And probably not the forehead scanners because they've proven to not be very accurate. If anyone's ever played with those, they're just not accurate. So, I don't know, other than having a conversation. If you had any symptoms lately of, all these things, and just having the conversation, take someone's temperature, but like starting to test and wait on antibodies, it starts to become like, I just don't see that happening in dentistry. Yeah. But maybe I history could prove me wrong. I don't know.
I saw Dennis Miller last night on Fox, and it was funny because I used to do my newsletter back almost 30 years ago. And at the end of my rants, I would say, Dennis Miller would always say, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. And that's the way I ended every one of my rants. I would rant about implants and I'd rant about this, that, and the other. And I would always end with, hey, that's just my opinion and I could be wrong. So yeah.
That's just the blanket. That's the blanket look back and be like, I don't know. Seems like a good idea, right? I like it. I'm going to start incorporating that, Bruce.
That's right. I've used it my whole career. So yeah, it was my idea, but hey, I could be wrong. As all of us are thinking about these things. Stephen, what other stuff we have?
So, of course, we talk a lot about EIDL loans on here. So maybe get your take as well, Dr. Boulden. Do y'all know anybody who has gotten one funded yet, or how to check on status of that? We get that question every day.
The PPP loan?
This is the EIDL loan.
Oh, EIDL. Yeah, so I've been funded. And you don't know. I had no communication. So I have multiple LLCs. I actually applied for probably 7 LLCs and I got funded for 3 of them. And in that application, you actually have to put in your routing and banking number and your email, and there was no communication whatsoever from the follow-up. No, we got your application, nothing. Logged in one morning and 3 of the accounts were $10,000 healthier.
Wow.
But no communication, no ups, nothing.
And I'm sure you got yours in 3 days, right?
No, yeah, they promised that in the beginning. I applied, Bruce, that's good comment. I applied actually over 2.5 weeks ago.
Yeah. I've got some buddies that have been funded. We've got people that have been on the webinars that have been funded that $10,000.
Right.
We have guys, it's kind of interesting. Even with the PPP loans, we had people get funded in 4 days or 5 days, but they're going to small community banks.
Yep.
Even our local little bank here in our small town, about a 20-minute application. 3 days later, they had their money. So yeah, that's a tough one.
That seems to have been the hack, by the way. I mean, finding a small community bank where there's not a massive line, but you got to have a primary banking relationship with that bank, and a lot of people, use the bigger banks and I shouldn't say a lot of people, but you see what I'm saying? And they've been picking and choosing who can go based on your banking relationship with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now here we are, it's all moot now until they pass more money. They get that money printer warmed back up again. Start printing it up.
Be on today and tomorrow up in Washington, I'm sure, because there's still a lot of people. Even I heard this morning that there are folks that have got their application and it's been in now for 4 days or 5 days, and their bank's telling them, well, the money ran out. And I'm going like, oh, wow, you got your application 5 days ago and the money ran out. So, and this was something that, at first we thought, oh, you could get funded whenever you wanted over this, you get the loan, you get approval, but you don't get, origination of that loan. And once you do, that's when the 8 weeks starts. And so I thought, well, hey, let's wait
till
till
10 days to get that deployed.
Right. It started at 5. Then they said, no, we'll give you 10. And they switched it around. So it was crazy. Stephen, how about you? What questions we got?
A lot of filtration questions. So I'm kind of going through these. So we're going to have a few that might kind of overlap here. But so I see folks buying specialized HEPA filters for the op. These run about $1,000 to $2,000 each. Wondering if purchasing these units for 2 reasons. Number one, are they needed? Will they ever meet regulations that will be formulated? What are your thoughts?
That was one of my questions I was going to ask you, Peter. I mean, are you doing anything in the treatment rooms different? Are you doing anything in your offices different? I know you have multiple offices. That would be a huge cost.
Yeah. I think I mean, I probably got 55 operatories total, right? So that's quite a price tag, and that's even assuming that there's availability with these sterilizers or whatever sterile. I forget what the name of them is, but we had that conversation on our mastermind call. Is like, is this going to be the standard? We also talked about a cheaper option and maybe more readily available for right now would be retrofitting your central air with UV lighting that actually helps disinfect. And then increasing like I said, that cross ventilation, or increasing the air turnover might be enough. Bruce, we've got these things, and I don't know the name of them I call them a snuffleupagus, and I'm sure people listening will know that the things that sit on patients, chests.
Yep.
I've got a couple of those, and that may be the standard. But also, even something as simple, Bruce, I was looking at some data of just like the isolites or even the Kona adapters, that you can find on eBay. Just actually having something, and the aerosols, the minimization of the aerosols just from something that simple, right? Yeah. So I'm not sure we're gonna have to go to these like $1,000 per operatory air filtration units again. But what do I, like you said, it's just my opinion. What do I know?
Yeah. Well, my deal is it's a great business opportunity for somebody to come in. I mean, you're going to see, it's kind of like in Texas when we get hailstorms. I get people knocking on my door like every day. I mean, if I was which I am an entrepreneur, I would be going to every dental office going, hey, we've got this, and this. We're going to put you up. You're going to be fixed. But the bottom line is, to me, I think you're right. The snuffleupagus or whatever that is, that big thing sucking the air, the transfer of air. I think all of those things are important, and the reduction of aerosol is going to be the secret. But are we gonna see that? I think it becomes a marketing plan for your dental office. It's not. It may not be necessary.
You hit the nail on the head right there.
If you put in something that was the state of the art, and let's say it did cost you in your business is $150,000, but you marketed it throughout Atlanta that we have this, equipment transfer, we do shorter appointments. Can you imagine buying this stuff at $600 for 20 or 30 and using this up? What's going to happen to dental prices? What's going to happen to that? Those are all kind of interesting questions to mull over.
Yeah. And I've heard all these are sold out too. So it's almost moot, right? Like, and they just can't ramp up production and snap their fingers on some of these machines too. So sure. I don't know. Bruce.
And they're busy making respirators.
Right. Or ventilators. Yeah.
The big part of this is going to be, availability. And that's my concern. Would any dentists that are listening to this, will you go back to work with just a standard level 1 mask that we've been wearing? And just tell us if you would. I'd be curious, because if we don't have, if and it really kind of depends on age, health. We know obesity is playing a huge role in the death rates, is what they're talking about. Of course, we've got one of the, we've got pretty nice obesity
in Texas
going on in the
southern states anyway.
The entire United States is going up. The only place, Colorado, I think, has stayed fairly stable. That's because it's not 150 degrees and you can go out and walk and enjoy yourself. So but the South has that. Stephen, what other questions do we have?
Yeah, that barbecue's not going to eat itself. So, it's not our fault. So I went ahead and I'm going to put that poll question over there in the chat for everyone. This is a good one. It's pretty simple. Do you think patient fear will trump demand?
Peter,
Yes. In the beginning.
Yeah. And
no one's going to want to be, it's like that, what am I trying to say? No one wants to be the first person over, but then when people see like, oh, they went to the dentist and they didn't see anything happening, it's going to be a slow transition. And, but I don't think I think there is pent up demand, but I don't think it's going to be all at once. Personally.
I'm thinking that we're going to have, that also becomes an amazing marketing opportunity, because there are going to be a lot of people fear, but they have to get the work done because they have infection or whatever it is, or, broken bridge or, whatever. They got to get this work done, but they're dealing with the difficulties and the thought process that I'm going to get this virus. They've already been told, don't go on cruises, don't go to restaurants, don't go here, don't go there. Yeah, I think it'll affect, but I still believe, it's being forward thinking, being a leader of your team. They want confidence. Yes, we're going to start reaching out to these people individually, get our schedule filled back with the people who know us and trust us, who have trusted us in the past. And we're using that as our background to get our schedule back full. Mm-hmm. And then our marketing would be people who say, well, my old dentist had shag carpet and a ceiling fan. I'm not going back there. I want to go see him at the dental spa or wherever. And so I think it creates a unique opportunity. There's always opportunity in signs of difficulty. And so it's thinking differently. It is being 100% committed to, when you go back to being productive and taking care of your team and taking care of your patients like we've always done. So, Stephen?
Yeah, perfect. So for that last question about going back with the same kind of protective standards, some yeses, some nos. Again, people want to kick to the ADA and really get some new recommendations here of what they should be protecting themselves. And there's a question I'm wondering, like, will dentists have their insurance pulled in some cases if they're not up to a particular standard? Or
which insurance? Like their malpractice probably, or what insurance would they be talking about?
So let me see here.
Malpractice, I'm thinking.
Or being providers of insurance plans?
I believe they're also have lost their dental insurance.
You talking about?
So I don't know if that's malpractice insurance or if they're just talking about maybe a patient lost their dental insurance for not coming back. That's what it could be. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if that. I don't know if that's going to play a big deal or not. I know people are going to not want to spend money.
Yeah,
I know that, and that's where the opportunity for compassionate finance and Abella, has been really big. I mean, we've signed up more people in the last 4 weeks than we signed up in the last 6 months, and so it's been a great opportunity for doctors to get trained and understand that patients are going to need some different financial arrangements during this time. And even the ones, I saw this in 2008, even people who had cash weren't spending it because they were afraid to spend it. So, I'll make payments, but I'm not going to do anything. Yep. I'm not taking this cash out of my pocket, and just changed the whole perspective of how we thought about things. So,
a doctor in the chat said that they worked on a patient who was wearing a mask, and every time they were going into the mouth, mask would go down. Second the fingers came out, mask goes back up. So I'm sure that was an interesting experience. Okay. Hi guys. Thanks for your input. What are your thoughts on air purifiers and alternate forms of sterilizers?
I think we've talked about that a little bit. I think that, I think ultraviolet light is a great sterilizer. They use it in some of the surgery suites in hospitals, but it does take a little bit of time. If it's going through an air gathering, up through your air conditioning unit, it can kill viruses and kill bacteria. And so I'm all over that. But I don't know. What are your thoughts, Peter?
Yeah, I think the UV sterilizers will be the lowest hanging fruit and the easiest thing for us to do. Like even in the central air aspect, or maybe there's a standalone units that can, after you're done wiping down and doing the disinfection of a room, when you're turning them over, you go in and set some light in there. I know that they exist. Also I think there will be sprays, like even just the spraying down the room from an aerosol perspective with Lysol or something of the equivalent, just to kind of attack some of the aerosols.
Yeah.
Because, even if you have a HEPA filter and these sterilizers in there, or whatever they're called, there's no guarantee, is that a guarantee that there's no pathogens and, airborne? Like, no. Right. So like, we're just, everyone just doesn't know. And so we're just going to like throwing things up at the ceiling and seeing what sticks. And until we get data that says like this works, like it's going to be a little bit of I think this is the right path. And then someone else can say, well, I think this is the right path. And we don't know yet.
Yeah, I think we will. I think in the next few weeks, we're going to get some guidance.
I do too.
I'm certainly hopeful, because if we don't, it's going to be the Wild West. And I've seen different sterilization techniques being used in other industry. I mean, steamers, like a little, high, heavy heat steam going around and steaming the chairs and the surfaces and everything else. I've heard people talking ozone and using ozone to sterilize a room, but some of these things take 20 minutes, to turn a room. And the person who comes up with a game plan that you can turn a room in 5 minutes and have some certainty that you're okay is great. Now, patients don't want to get it, and I don't want to get it, but I'd love to have the antibodies, which means, I'd love to have either a vaccine or something that I could take so I knew that I could go back to work.
Right.
But a lot of your patients are going to be the herd mentality. They're going to
and I think too, Bruce, in dentistry, and this is just speculation, I think we have stronger immunities than most healthcare workers, because we are kind of like micro inoculated our entire careers, right? With the aerosols that we produce. And so, it's just speculation, but like, I know I get sick a lot less than my contemporaries do that aren't in dentistry, a lot less. So who knows?
It's a great point. I haven't really thought of that, but you're right. I mean, knock on wood, I just never get the flu. I never get colds. I've been blowing stuff in my face for 40 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, I guess you're right. We probably do have a little bit stronger immunities, but we have to be, we're wary of this particular thing if we have medical issues or something like that. But I tell you, you're right. You're right. Stephen, any more good questions?
Yeah, absolutely. We have one here. It is, with patients coming back, possibly losing their insurance and maybe taking a ding on their credit score, do you have any ideas of kind of how we can finance some of that dental care?
Yes. Compassionate Finance will send out the webinar that we did on compassionate finance. It's a little self-serving. I've started that company 9 years ago, right after 2008. That debacle, but we'll send that and the one for Abella out to everybody that's listening today. So, and that'll explain to you, just go through it. And I think you'll have a much better understanding of how to approach this, because I promise you, you're going to need other new financial arrangements for patients, and you don't want to be the one doing the collections. And so that's where compassionate finance really plays a role.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, Bruce. I think it's a good time to audit the way maybe you have been presenting treatment, because look, we live in a monthly economy, right? A lot of people don't know what the cost of a Toyota Tercel is, but they know it's probably $160 a month, right? Sure. And Craig uses that analogy all the time, right? So we just live in this monthly, like, okay, does this fit with your budget? And a lot of times we don't present that way in dentistry. It's like, oh, it's $4,500 for the Invisalign or whatever it is. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And
I'll talk to my spouse.
Well, that seems okay. But if it's $100 a month, right? So it allows us to kind of audit how we've been presenting treatment, and you're right, optimize for ways like compassionate or care, whatever you're using, right?
You're going to see about a 50 to 80 point drop in credit scores during this time. We saw a 40 to 50 point drop in 2008. And banks are going to have different regs. They're going to be holding on to cash. They're going to be even more difficult to get third-party financing. So you need to have another strategy for that, or at least an additional strategy to deal with this. That's what we did back in 2009, 2010, and it worked very well. But it was before the company was ever started. We began doing it kind of on our own as kind of our own test run, and it works well. Stephen, anything else? I know we're running towards the end of the hour. So
yeah. They're like a school of fish, so they hear one conversation and we get over there. So what kind of financial payment options are offered at Atlanta Dental Spa?
So compassionate, care credit, green sky. And that's it. We don't do any, like anything else. And we are a fee for service practice. So so those are our options.
I mean, that really covers, the whole pantheon of patients that come in the door with those 3 products right there.
Really does.
Do you recommend any particular company face shield that can be reused more than once?
The face shields can always, I mean, they sell them on, I think that's going to be the new, how scrubs became fashionable, right? All of a sudden everyone wore Cherokee scrubs 10 years ago and it was like, oh, they're just scrubs. And now we have Fig and like all these custom designs. Like, I think there's going to be face shield fashion kind of coming down the pipe, just the way the scrubs did. And so, and they're reusable. They're going to be able to spray them down because they're going to have a neoprene headband on them, and they're going to have microband incorporated in them, and you're going to be able to wipe them down and have a couple in your op and roll on, and they're going to be pretty cool looking. I told my wife, who's in fashion, I was like, that's what you need to do. Like, you need to start, start cool. So she actually has some that she uses she loves to pressure wash, ironically, but she actually has some that are really cool. And they look like almost like Oakley shades on them. And, so I think that's going to be a thing, personally, but they're not all disposable. Like, you should be able to spray them down, disinfect, and turn them over, just like we do our loops, right?
Absolutely.
That teed up for the next question right there is, what face shield can you use with loops? I might start working on that myself today.
Yeah. Good question.
I don't know. That is a great question. You may have to poke holes in them and then caulk around the hole. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
That would be great.
You heard it here first. The DIY project.
Make sure it's a clear caulk, because it might be.
Like my painter used to say, just caulk it.
Caulk it, right?
Yeah, just caulk it. We'll go around the loops. Yeah, those are good questions. But
that's a little hard question, because then obviously you don't want to have your visor be cantilevering off of your forehead, right? Like, in too much.
Well, I'm thinking, I've seen the guys with these hoods.
Yeah.
The hood goes
the spacesuits.
Yeah, and then and it just covers their scrubs. And then they've got this thing that they're wearing between, but these docs, I mean, they're not doing precise. I mean, they're not cutting crown preps, doing root canals and that kind of stuff. They don't need the kind of stuff we have.
Right.
So, Steven, anything else that just stands out?
Always. What if you offer employees their jobs back and they take advantage of the PPE and they say they don't feel safe working?
I mean, look, that becomes, I mean, what can you do? Like, you can't drag someone to water and say, drink. Like, if you don't feel safe, we have to go, okay, well, we're opening, like,
right
next. Like, we have to have someone, because patients need to be helped. The business can't be predicated on you not feeling safe. Like, there's someone who feels safe. The industry is deemed it to be safe. Like, sorry, moving on.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, if we have the PPE that we need and we've got reasonable, stuff, but there's going to be people that probably, are not in the best health, that have been working for us, that decide, I can't go back. I can't do this right now. I'm going to, if my position is open later, I'll be more than happy to come back. Or maybe an older person who's had some medical history as an employee.
But we've always been dealing with contagion in dentistry, right?
Okay.
So, like, the fact that it's like, I don't feel safe all of a sudden, like, you weren't working in a sterile environment before.
That's right. Oh, I think that probably becomes part of the discussion that as a leader you have with your teams every week, right, saying, guys, this is what we're doing. This is how we're looking at it. This is the research I've looked at. Having confidence from the leader is probably going to be the most important thing to get your team back. If you're freaked out and going like, I don't know, man, I don't know, we're worried. You're going to have probably quite a few people that are going to kind of say, well, I'm worried too. If you're worried, I'm worried. And so at the point you're ready to open, my assumption is we're going to have some guidelines, and you're going to have the stuff you need to feel comfortable bringing your team back.
But Bruce, like if only all jobs could be free of like occupational hazards, right? There'd be no tree cutters, there'd be no surgeons, there'd be no anyone doing anything. Like some jobs just come with a certain level of risk. That's why we're compensated as such, in the industry. Like a lot of my, our team is paid higher than some nurses and stuff. So I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just saying like usually jobs involved risk. Even if you're just commuting to work, that's a risk of getting in the car. So like, I don't know. At some point you have to calibrate, like they've deemed it to be safe. The government, the ADA are have deemed it to be safe. Like we have to get back to work. And if you can't work, like we have to find someone who can do it for you.
That's right. That's exactly right. I'm 100% in agreement. Stephen?
That's perfect. You guys have cleared the question board today. It was absolutely fantastic. I don't know if y'all have any final thoughts. And we definitely need to get some plugs from Dr. Boulden of where you can find more of his stuff on the web and follow more Bulletproof Dental Practice.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have a podcast. It's really on business and marketing. And it's with Dr. Craig Spodak in Florida. And so we run the Bulletproof Dental Practice Podcast, which then has a summit once or sometimes twice a year. We have a Bulletproof Mastermind. And really the purpose of the podcast is just to educate and kind of lean into dentists. And because Craig and I have stood on the shoulders of giants like Bruce, and it's our way to kind of give back to the industry as a whole and everyone level up. So that's it.
I tell you what, we sure appreciate what you're doing for dentistry. Both of you, you guys are both, both just fantastic people. And I really enjoy being around you guys. I love being around positive people with ideas. And you guys, both you guys have some really cool ideas and thought processes. And that's what we need in dentistry. We need new ways of thinking. I agree. We don't need the same old shit we've been listening to for the last 40 years. So.
I agree. And, and dentists as a whole, I think are super innovative. And I think they're just really good people. I love the industry and the business of dentistry and dentists as a whole. And so I think that, look, we're going to come out of this stronger, and the businesses that obviously that flourish through this or come out of this are going to flourish. And because we're going to have to audit, it gives you opportunity to look back and be like, what was right and what was wrong. Right. And become stronger out of this. And if I don't know what you believe in, but like this too will pass.
Yes.
This is going to pass.
It is. I say it's going to be okay. It's just, we're not sure exactly.
Everything is going to be okay.
Everything is going to be okay. Hey, buddy, thanks so much for being on.
My pleasure, gentlemen.
And you guys look at Bulletproof. I mean, they're great guys.
Thanks for the plug, pal.
All right.
See you guys. Everyone have a great day. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you so much. I will send out an email with today's recording. I will have links to the Bulletproof podcast, especially the episode with Dr. Baird on it. Craig, Peter, and Dr. Baird, they just have such a great rapport together. I think you'll really enjoy that episode. We'll also send out some links to both Compassionate Finance and Abella demos, and we'll even continue on those poll questions. So thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Baird. Thank you so much as always.
You bet. Thank you. Good job, Stephen.